Tyler had just spilled coffee on his only clean shirt. His daughter was late for school. The truck was sputtering on fumes. But what he saw on the side of that country road was about to change not just his day, but his entire life. She was standing barefoot in the dirt, wedding dress ripped, mascara running down her face, and without a word, she opened the truck door and got in. Tyler Reed wasn't anyone special. He didn't think so. Anyway, a single dad with a beat-up Ford and a 6-year-old daughter who still needed help tying her shoelaces. He worked nights at a packaging plant just outside of Spring Hollow, and mornings were usually a coffee, cereal, mismatched socks, and that constant rush to beat the school bell. But on this morning, everything was slightly off. First, Charlotte had misplaced her favorite headband. Then, the truck wouldn't start, and when it finally did, the gaslight blinked a soft orange warning, like an omen that today was about to go sideways. And then, there she was. It was on that lonely stretch of County Road 9, just after the big oak tree with the tire swing, where the shoulder turns to gravel. Tyler slowed down when he saw the flash of white. A woman standing dead still, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, hair wild, and a wedding dress that looked like it had been dragged through a storm. She didn't wave him down. She didn't run. She just looked at him. Charlotte, half asleep in the back seat, suddenly sat up. "Daddy, is that a princess?" Tyler's foot hovered over the brake. She didn't look like a princess up close. She looked like something out of a ghost story, haunted, lost, broken. He rolled down the window halfway. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked. The woman blinked. Mascara stained her cheeks. She opened her mouth like she might scream, or cry, or run, but she just whispered, "Can I get in?" Tyler hesitated. This wasn't normal. He had a daughter in the car. He didn't know this woman, but something in her voice, barely above a whisper, trembling like a leaf, made him nod. "Yeah, okay, hop in." She opened the door and slid in without another word. Her dress bunched up in the seat. Her hands were trembling. She was clutching something, a small white bouquet, petals wilted and bruised. Tyler glanced at her. "You hurt? Do you need help?" She shook her head. He looked in the rearview mirror. Charlotte was wide-eyed. "Who is she?" "Daddy." The woman spoke again, this time softer. "I just need a ride, please." Tyler put the truck in gear. For a few moments, the only sound was the rattling engine and the crunch of gravel under the tires. By the time they reached the school, Charlotte had gone quiet again. She kept glancing at the woman beside her father, eyes full of questions she was too polite to ask. Tyler pulled into the drop-off lane and threw it in park. "I gotta walk her in," he said to the woman. "You okay to wait here?" The woman didn't answer right away. She looked out the window, as if she hadn't heard him. Then, with a small nod, she whispered, "I'll stay." He walked Charlotte inside quickly, promising to explain things later. When he returned, the woman was curled up against the passenger door, bouquet still in her hand, staring out at nothing. Back on the road. Tyler couldn't help it. He glanced at her again. He got a name. She didn't respond at first. Then slowly, she said, "Alina." "Okay, Alina. You running from someone?" "Silence. You in danger." She swallowed hard but still said nothing. He sighed. "You need me to take you somewhere." Finally she spoke. "Just anywhere but back." Back. That one word said everything. Tyler didn't need the details. He'd seen that look before in a friend's face when her husband used to come home drunk. In his own mother's eyes when she left Tyler's father without $1 too. Her name, he didn't ask again. He just drove. Tyler stopped at a roadside motel just outside of town. The kind with flickering neon signs and doors that creaked too loud. He got out and paid in cash. The woman didn't follow him in. When he came back, he handed her the key. "Room 6. It's yours for the night." She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. Her lip trembled. "I don't have anything to give you. You don't have to." Her fingers clutched the bouquet tighter. She stepped out slowly, dress dragging along the concrete, and whispered, "Thank you." Then, before disappearing into the room, she added, "You didn't ask. Everyone always asks." Tyler gave a soft nod. "Maybe that's why you got in my truck." Tyler didn't sleep much that night. He kept thinking about the woman in the wedding dress, about how lost she looked, about Charlotte's innocent question, "Is she a princess?" No, she wasn't, but maybe once she'd wanted to be. The next morning, his phone buzzed with an alert. Local news. Breaking. Billionaire Tyrell Vance's bride vanishes moments before. Vows $0.4 million wedding cancelled mid-ceremony. Tyler blinked. He looked at the photo attached to the article. There she was, Alina, smiling in a staged engagement, photoed beside the billionaire himself, clean, glamorous, untouched by whatever pain he'd seen in her the day before. Tyler sat down hard on the kitchen chair. She hadn't just run away. She had run from a man with power. And now the entire country would be looking for her. And she was sleeping alone. In room 6. The wind outside room 6 was louder than usual that morning. Tyler stood under the motel's faded awning, phone in one hand, the other stuffed in his jacket pocket. The article glared back at him like a flashing light he couldn't ignore. There she was, Alina Dot, standing beside the billionaire, smiling like she belonged in his world. But Tyler knew better now. That photo was nothing but a mask, a posed, pretty illusion. She wasn't smiling when she climbed into his truck. She wasn't polished or perfect when she stared out that window, bouquet trembling in her hand. No, whatever world that man had offered her, she'd chosen to run from it, chosen to face the road barefoot, instead of say, I do. And now she was in the room just feet away, asleep, hiding, vulnerable. Tyler exhaled slowly. He couldn't leave her like this. He knocked gently once. Then again it took a moment, but the door cracked open. She was still in the same dress, now crumpled and more stained than before. Her hair fell in tangled waves across her face, and her voice was barely audible when she said, "Is something wrong?" He held up his phone, unsure how else to say it. She didn't have to read it. The look in his eyes was enough. "They know," she whispered. He nodded. "It's everywhere." She stepped back. "Do you think they'll come here?" Tyler hesitated. "If they haven't already, they will soon." For a moment, she looked like she might collapse. But then, something changed. In her posture, she squared her shoulders, wiped her face with the back of her hand, and set the wilted bouquet on the table behind her, like she was laying down an old weapon. "I can't go back," she said, her voice steadier now. "You won't," Tyler replied, surprising himself with how sure he sounded. "Not if I can help it." That afternoon, he took her to a small diner on the edge of town. It was the kind of place where people minded their own business, and the waitress still called everyone hun. Alina kept her head low, her hands hidden in the sleeves of a hoodie he'd brought from home. It was 2 sizes too big, but it made her feel invisible, safe. She stirred her tea slowly. "He doesn't love me. Not really. I was just ... a prize, a checkmark." "You don't owe me your story," Tyler said gently. "But maybe I need to tell someone anyway," she replied, barely above a whisper. And then, with hesitant words and long pauses, she told him what her life had really looked like behind those polished photos, the curated posts, the designer dresses. It wasn't fairy tale romance. It was a contract, a merger of wealth and influence, a life where decisions were made for her, where her voice got quieter the higher they climbed. And the wedding, it wasn't hers. "Not really. I tried to back out 3 months ago," she confessed. "My mother cried. His lawyers threatened mine. There were articles already written, guests already flown in. My dress was finished before I said yes." Tyler listened in silence, the weight of her words heavy in the air between them. "So I ran," she said finally. "I ran before they could finish locking the cage." And suddenly, Tyler didn't see a runaway bride. He saw a woman fighting for her life, a woman who'd spent years being shaped by other people's expectations, had finally, courageously, chosen to break free. But freedom had a price. By the time they left the diner, 2 black cars had passed the window. Alina didn't flinch, but Tyler noticed. So did the waitress. "You kids okay?" she asked as she handed over the bill. Tyler smiled politely. "Just tired." The waitress leaned in, her eyes soft. "Well, you let me know if anyone's bothering you. Folks in this town, we don't like people being hunted." That night, back at the house, Charlotte asked about the lady again. "Is she a friend?" Tyler glanced toward the couch, where Elena was curled up under a blanket, fast asleep. "Yeah," he said quietly. "She is now." Days passed. The news died down a little, but the story hadn't vanished. The billionaire's camp released a statement claiming concern for Elena's well-being, hoping she'd come home. Others weren't so kind. Online threads called her unstable, a gold digger, a drama queen. But Elena didn't read the headlines. She started helping around the house instead, doing dishes, braiding Charlotte's hair in the mornings. even baking muffins that somehow burned on the outside but stayed raw in the middle. Tyler never mentioned the article again. He didn't ask about the past, he just showed up. With breakfast, with patience, with space to breathe. One evening, she turned to him as they sat on the porch, watching the sun sink behind the hills. "You're the first person who didn't try to fix me," she said. He smiled. "Maybe you were never broken to begin with." And that's when she started crying. Not the scared kind of crying, not even the sad kind, but the kind that comes when someone finally realizes they're safe. But safety was a short-lived blessing, because 2 days later, Tyler came home to find his front door wide open. The house was quiet, too quiet. Charlotte's backpack was on the floor, Elena's blanket was on the couch, and a small white card was resting on the kitchen table. A single line written in gold ink. "You can't hide what doesn't belong to you." Tyler's heart dropped. Elena was gone, and this time, she didn't run. She was taken. Tyler stood frozen in the doorway, his eyes locked on the card resting on the kitchen table. His fingers curled slightly, like they could grip the air and stop it from spinning. But it was no use. The silence in the house was too complete. Not even the hum of the fridge or the creak of the ceiling fan. Just stillness. He called out once, twice, "Elena," nothing. His voice broke on the third try. "Charlotte." He ran through the house, each empty room pounding louder in his chest than the last. Charlotte's bedroom was untouched, the blankets tossed in a hurry. Her favorite stuffed animal still clutched in the corner of the bed. The back door was closed, locked. No signs of struggle, no broken glass, no noise, just that card. "You can't hide what doesn't belong to you." Tyler held it like it might burn him. The handwriting was clean, expensive. It wasn't a note, it was a statement. Not just to Elena, to him a warning, maybe. Or worse, a claim. He picked up the phone to call the police, then stopped. What would he say? That a billionaire's bride had been hiding in his house. That someone might have taken her. That the man on every screen in America could be behind it. No one would believe him. Or worse, everyone would. He sat down, card in hand, and stared at the clock on the wall as the minutes passed like hours. The only sound now was the ticking dot, and then a voice broke the silence. "Dad." Tyler turned fast. Charlotte was at the top of the stairs, rubbing her eyes, safe, still home. He exhaled like he hadn't breathed in minutes. She padded down the stairs, still half asleep. "Where's Miss Elena?" Tyler crouched to meet her eyes. "She had to go somewhere," he said slowly, "but I think, maybe not by choice." Charlotte's face scrunched. "Is she okay?" "I hope so, kiddo." And that's when he made the decision. He didn't know exactly who had come. He didn't have cameras or witnesses or answers. But he had instinct, and instinct told him Elena was in trouble. He packed a bag that night, left a note for his neighbor, to watch Charlotte for a day or two. Told her he had a family matter out of town, a personal thing. No one asked questions. In a town like Spring Hollow, folks still respected privacy. Before the sun was up, Tyler was back in his truck, the wheels humming a determined rhythm beneath him. His gut told him to start at the edges, the places Elena Mitov mentioned but never lingered on. A vineyard up north her family once owned. A lakeside cabin she said she used to visit before the press started chasing her. Little breadcrumbs dropped without thinking. In moments, she forgot to protect herself, and he remembered them all. That's how you know someone matters. You remember what they didn't mean to share. The cabin was empty, but someone had been there. Faint scent of perfume still hung in the air. A teacup in the sink. A fire pit just cold. He asked around the nearby town. Showed a photo. Got a few curious stares and one nod from an old man behind the gas station counter. Came through 2 nights ago. Pretty girl, quiet, wasn't alone. Tyler leaned in. "Can you describe the man?" The old man shrugged. "Didn't see much. Tall suit, city type. Didn't look happy." That didn't narrow it down, but it did confirm one thing. Elena hadn't left by choice. Tyler pressed further. Called in a favor from someone he knew who worked security in the city. Asked for access to street cams around the Vance estate. It was a long shot, but desperation does strange things to a man, and sometimes it works. A blurry image, 2 days old, a car pulling through the Vance gates. Elena's face in the window, pale, tired, not screaming, not waving, just sitting there, like she knew resistance would only make it worse. He zoomed in. Her bouquet, the same one, still in her lap. He didn't understand the significance, but it mattered. She hadn't let go of it since the day she ran. And that's when Tyler realized something. This wasn't about the wedding. This wasn't about media, or money, or shame. This was about control. Alina had been trying to escape something bigger than a marriage contract. She had been trying to reclaim something that had been taken from her long before the engagement photos. Her voice, her choice, her freedom, and someone had dragged her back before she could finish reclaiming it. That night, Tyler sat in his truck across from the Vance estate. It stretched behind iron gates like a castle in a movie grand. Intimidating, impossible to approach without being noticed. But he wasn't here to storm the gates. He was here to watch. To learn, to find the cracks in the armor, and maybe, just maybe, find a way to get her out. He watched until the lights went out, until the guards rotated, until the wind changed, and then he whispered to himself, as much a promise as a prayer, "You don't get to cage her again, not while I'm breathing." The cold metal of the gate shimmered under the moonlight like a wall of silence. Tyler had been sitting in his truck for hours, engine off, his breath fogging up the windows. He hadn't moved except to sip water and jot notes in the little notebook Charlotte had once drawn unicorns on. Now it held sketches of guard rotations, light patterns, and the timing of delivery vans pulling in and out of the Vance estate. There were no holes in the system, no way in that didn't involve risk. But Tyler had never been the kind of man to wait for perfect conditions. He'd raised a daughter alone, survived nights with no heat, and learned how to fix a truck engine with duct tape and borrowed tools. He didn't need perfect, he just needed one chance. That chance came in the form of a florist's van. It was just after 5 a.m., and the guard at the gate barely looked up as the young driver buzzed in. Tyler had memorized the logo, White Rose Events. He watched the van disappear around the curve, then slid out of his truck and into the nearby hedges, where he'd stashed a stolen uniform from a thrift store earlier that day. 15 minutes later, he was walking toward the back service entrance of the estate, wheeling an empty cart of boxed flowers he'd lifted from the florist's local warehouse. His heart thundered in his chest, every step tighter than the last. But no one stopped him. It wasn't until he crossed the courtyard that he realized the entire mansion was built to look open. But it was fortified from the inside out, a prison with chandeliers. He didn't know exactly where Alina might be, but he trusted something would pull him in the right direction. And it did. It was the music, faint, classical, coming from a small structure just off the main house, more like a sunroom than a proper wing. The curtains were drawn, but the lights were on, and behind the sheer fabric of the window, he saw her daughter Lena. She was seated at a grand piano, still in that same wedding dress, now pressed and spotless, hair pinned, face painted. But there was no music coming from her hands, just silence. The sound had been recorded, playing softly through hidden speakers while she sat in front of the keys. Her fingers frozen, posed something about the scene, made his skin crawl. It was a performance one she hadn't agreed to. The door was unlocked. He stepped inside quietly. She didn't jump. She turned slowly, like someone who was used to being surprised. Her eyes widened. Her mouth parted in disbelief. Tyler. He crossed the room in seconds, dropped to his knees beside her. "Are you okay? What did they do to you?" She shook her head, voice trembling. "They didn't hurt me, but they made it clear. I can't leave. Not unless I want everything I've ever known torn apart." He stared at her, heart pounding. "What do you mean?" She looked down at her hands, then whispered, "It's not just about me anymore." Tyler waited. And then, like pulling a thread that unraveled everything, she said, "I signed something months ago. It gave them control, not just over my name, but over what happens if I disappear. My family's estate, their health coverage, my younger brother's education fund. They tied everything to me staying." Tyler sat back, stunned. It wasn't just a contract. It was leverage. They hadn't built a marriage. They'd built a cage around the people she loved. "I thought, if I ran, maybe they'd let it go," she whispered. "But they don't let go. They tighten." He ran a hand through his hair. "Then we untie it. Somehow we find someone. A lawyer, a journalist, anyone. No one wants to cross them," she said. They, by silence. Tyler's voice hardened. "Then we find someone who can't be bought." For a moment, she looked at him like he was crazy, and then, slowly, hopefully, she smiled. That was when the door behind them opened. Tyler stood fast. A tall man entered, gray suit, immaculate shoes, clipboard in hand. Not security, not a thug. but someone worse. A handler. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He simply said, "Miss Vance, it's time for your press statement." Tyler stepped forward. "She's not going." The man blinked slowly. "You must be the driver." "She's not going," Tyler repeated, louder this time. The man turned his head slightly, almost amused. "You've mistaken this for a choice." Alina stood. For the first time, she wasn't shaking. "I'm not giving a statement," she said quietly. The man didn't move. "Then your family loses their house by the end of the week. The payments stop. The lawyers call in the debts." Tyler took a step forward, fists clenched. "You think no one will find out about this?" "They won't," the man said simply, "because people like me don't leave trails, and people like you, they don't get heard." He turned to walk out. "You have 1 hour, Miss Vance. Then the cameras go live." And just like that, the door clicked shut again. Tyler turned to her. "We still have time." Elena's eyes were glassy. "I don't have enough to offer the world, Tyler. I'm just someone who made a mistake and tried to run from it." He stepped closer. "You have everything that matters. Truth, courage, and someone who's willing to help you fight. That's more than most." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she whispered, "There's one more thing I haven't told you." He waited. And when she said it, the words felt heavier than the room itself. "I was pregnant. I lost it before the wedding. No one knows, not even him. That's when I decided I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't bring a child into that world." Tyler didn't respond right away. He just wrapped his arms around her as her voice broke into a quiet sob. She didn't need advice. She didn't need a plan. She just needed someone to stand still with her in the moment. And he did. But as the minutes ticked past, they both knew what had to come next. Tyler would not let this be the end of her story. She had finally stopped running. Now, it was time to fight. The sky was turning a soft blue when Alina walked out of the sunroom. Her hands were shaking, but her back was straight, and her face had lost that quiet panic Tyler had seen so many times before. Something had shifted. Not just fear turning to courage, but silence becoming a voice. Tyler followed a step behind, not to lead her but to be there if she fell. She didn't. They walked past the manicured hedges, past the white stone fountain in the shape of two doves ironic. Considering what this place really was, from the outside, the Vance estate looked like a symbol of elegance and prestige, but Tyler now saw it for what it had become, a museum of control, where beauty was curated and truth was buried under marble floors. The press vans were already setting up on the east lawn. Tripods, microphones, bright lights, the whole spectacle. Tyler had watched enough TV to know what was about to happen. They'd stage a statement. Alina would stand beside the billionaire. He'd say something polished, warm, practiced, and she'd smile, nod, maybe wipe a fake tear. Just enough to kill the rumors. But this time, that wasn't going to happen. The billionaire was already there. Tyrell Vance, dressed in black, sleeves rolled to the forearms like he was casually above the chaos. His charm was calculated. He turned to Alina with the smile that had likely won boardrooms and bought headlines. "There she is," he said smoothly, like nothing had happened. "You gave us quite the scare. Let's tell the world you're safe." Tyler watched her carefully. She didn't flinch. She didn't look away. Instead, Alina stepped forward and said in a calm, steady voice, "I'm not here to lie for you." The smile slipped for just a second. Barely, but it was enough. "Alina," Tyrell said, voice tighter, lower, "let's not make this complicated." She took one more step toward the cameras. Her fingers found Tyler's briefly, just a brush of skin, but enough to remind her she wasn't alone. Then she faced the sea of microphones. "I'm Elena Worth," she began, her voice clear and direct, "and I'm not missing. I didn't run because I was overwhelmed. I left because I was being forced into a life I didn't choose." There was a murmur from the crowd. Camera shutters clicked rapidly, as she continued. "I've been silent for years, told what to wear, where to go, who to smile for, what to say. But today, I'm not here as a product of anyone's brand. I'm here as a woman who chose freedom over fear." A reporter called out, "Are you saying the engagement was forced?" She nodded slowly. "It was made under pressure, under conditions that used my family's needs as bargaining chips. I was told love would grow in time, that security was more valuable than honesty, but it never felt like love. It felt like ownership." Tyler watched Tyrell Vance's expression darken. He looked around as if searching for someone to stop the feed. to pull the plug, but it was too late. The live stream was rolling. Her voice was out there. Another reporter shouted, "Why come forward now? Why not disappear?" And Alina, without missing a beat, said, "Because disappearing doesn't change anything, but speaking does." She stepped back. A pause filled the space, heavy and unbreakable. The media froze, as if unsure what to say next. Tyrell finally stepped forward, face tight with forced composure. "Alina has clearly been through a difficult time," he said smoothly. "We respect her journey and only want the best for her." She turned to him, her words sharper now. "Don't stand beside me like you ever saw me. You loved what I could do for your name. You loved the image, not the person." Tyrell's eyes flickered toward Tyler, finally acknowledging the quiet man who had been standing beside Alina this whole time. "And who are you?" he asked, with a trace of condescension. Tyler didn't blink. "The guy who opened a truck door when she had nowhere to go. The guy who didn't need to know her last name to treat her like a human being." There was silence again, then a ripple of applause. Small, hesitant at first from someone in the back, a camera woman maybe, then another, and another. Alina turned her head slightly, surprised. For the first time, the world wasn't clapping for a performance, it was clapping for the truth. After the press left and the mansion began to empty, Alina and Tyler sat together under a tree, just outside the gates. No guards, no suits, just them. "You think they'll leave me alone now?" she asked quietly. "I think they're afraid of you now," he said. "Why?" Because he stopped being quiet. She looked down at the bouquet again still clutched in her lap. "After all this time, I was going to throw this away so many times," she said. "But I think I kept holding on because I didn't know who I was without it, without the bride, without the plan." Tyler reached over, took it gently from her hands, and laid it on the ground. "You're someone without it. Someone who walked away when staying was easier. That takes strength most people never find." Alina leaned her head on his shoulder, and, for the first time in days, they didn't need to say anything at all. They'd made it through the storm, but the healing that was just beginning. The news didn't stop the next day, or the one after. Elena's face was everywhere. Talk shows, headlines, podcasts, dissecting her words like scripture. But this time, it wasn't scandal. They focused on it with strength. The girl in the torn wedding dress who walked away from millions. The woman who faced the cameras, not with lawyers, but with honesty. The bride who didn't say "I do," and somehow taught a nation what it meant to choose yourself. But none of that mattered much to her now, because Alina wasn't reading headlines anymore. She was planting flowers in Tyler's backyard, her hands covered in soil, laughter rising from her chest in a way that made even the bees hover closer to listen. Tyler stood on the porch, coffee in one hand, watching her with the kind of quiet admiration he usually reserved for sunsets and sleeping Charlotte. It had been 3 weeks since the press conference. 3 weeks since the mansion, since the card on the table, since the moment everything could have gone wrong, but didn't. Charlotte had taken to Alina as if she'd always been there. They baked cookies that looked nothing like cookies, played music too loud on Saturday mornings, read books under a blanket fort that had taken over the living room for days straight. But what Tyler noticed most wasn't the noise or the laughter or the burnt deserts. It was the way Alina had started breathing differently, like she finally remembered how. And then one evening, just after dinner, as the sun was melting behind the hills, Alina stood in the doorway with a small envelope in her hand. Tyler looked up from the sink. "You okay?" She nodded, but there was something in her eyes, something softer than fear, deeper than joy. "I got a letter today. From a women's shelter in New York. They saw the press conference. They're starting a campaign to help other women walk away from lives they didn't choose. They want me to speak, to write, to show up." He dried his hands slowly. "That's amazing, Elena." She smiled, unsure. "But it's far, and it's big, and it's not here." Tyler leaned against the counter, quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You don't have to stay to be a part of this family, and you don't have to go to matter. But if this is something you need to do, I'll help you pack." Her eyes glistened, and he could see the war behind them. Home or purpose, safety or voice. Then Charlotte ran in from the hallway and threw her arms around Elena's waist. "Can you still live here even if you go help people?" Alina knelt down, her voice breaking just a little. "I'd always come back, sweetheart, always." Tyler watched them, heart full and heavy at once. He wasn't losing her. He was watching her fly. 2 weeks later, they drove her to the airport. It was quiet in the car, not sad, just real. When they reached the terminal, Alina turned to Charlotte first. "You're the reason I remembered how to smile." Charlotte grinned. "You're the reason Dad stopped eating frozen waffles every night?" Then Alina turned to Tyler. He didn't speak, just held out a small book. Her bouquet was pressed between the pages, dried now, fragile but still whole. "I kept it," he said simply. "Not because of the day you ran, but because of the day you stopped." She took it with both hands, blinking back tears. "You saved me." Tyler shook his head. "No, I just opened a door. You were the one who stepped through." They hugged. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't desperate. It was steady, deep, the kind of embrace that stitched something together instead of pulling it apart. Then she walked into the terminal and disappeared behind. The glass doors. The house was quieter after she left, but not empty. Letters started coming, then voice messages, then video calls. She spoke in shelters in high schools, at fundraisers, not about money, not about fame, but about truth, about second chances, about how sometimes the most heroic thing a person can do is walk away from the life everyone else celebrates so they can finally build one that feels real. And then, one day, a package arrived. No note, no return address. Inside was a framed photo of Alina on stage, holding a microphone, eyes bright, hair wild. And in the corner, scribbled in blue ink, "I found my voice, but I left a piece of my heart with you." Tyler stared at the photo for a long time. Then he hung it next to Charlotte's drawings in the hallway. Some stories don't end with weddings. Some end with freedom. Some end with flowers blooming from cracks in the pavement. But the best ones, they don't end at all. They just begin again, in places you never thought to look. Asterisk.